The story is about a guy named Cole who is 14 years old. This boy was living a peaceful, fun life with his single mother and brother, Zane, who is 5 years old. One day, Cole shot the ball so high it got into the neighbor's backyard. This neighbor was called Richard. He was an old, angry, mysterious man who lived alone and only went out at night. Cole knew that if he got into his backyard, he wouldn't get his ball and he would be grounded. So he made a plan to wait until midnight, then sneak to get it. At midnight, when the family was asleep, Cole sneaked into that backyard, and just as he was about to grab the ball, he heard a noise. The neighbor came back. He started cursing, but not at Cole. He seemed to be carrying a very heavy black bag that he struggled to get into the house. Cole was watching from a corner. Once Richard got that bag home, Cole peeked from the window, but he was shocked because the neighbor pulled out from that bag what seemed to be a human hand. Cole took the ball and ran to his house. The unbelievable truth. Cole burst through his back door, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. The cool night air felt like ice against his skin, despite the frantic adrenaline coursing through him. He fumbled with the lock, his hands shaking so violently he almost dropped the football. He didn't bother turning on any lights, navigating the familiar darkness of his home on pure instinct. Up the stairs, past his mom's closed door, and into the shared bedroom with Zane, who was a small, peaceful mound under his dinosaur duvet. Cole dove onto his own bed, pulling the covers up to his chin, the football still clutched tightly in his arms. His mind replayed the image, a gruesome, impossible vision that refused to fade. A hand, a human hand, pale, lifeless, and detached. Richard, the grumpy recluse who smelled faintly of old books and something metallic, had pulled it from a heavy black bag as casually as if he were unwrapping groceries. Cole squeezed his eyes shut, trying to dismiss it as a trick of the moonlight, a shadow, anything but what he knew it was. But the memory was too vivid, too stark. He knew what he had seen. The rest of the night was a blur of restless fear. Every creak of the old house, every rustle of leaves outside, sounded like Richard's heavy footsteps, like the whisper of the black bag. When the first weak rays of dawn finally pierced his window, Cole felt no relief, only exhaustion. He hadn't slept a wink. At breakfast, his mother, Sarah, a vibrant woman with kind eyes and a perpetually harried but loving demeanor, noticed his pallor immediately. "Cole, honey, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Zane, ever the perceptive 5-year-old, piped up, "Cole's sick. Can I have his pancakes?" "I'm fine, Mom," Cole mumbled, pushing a piece of toast around his plate. He glanced at her, then at Zane, then back at his toast. How could he even begin to explain? I saw something last night." Sarah paused, setting down her coffee cup. "Oh, what did you see?" She sounded amused, likely expecting a tale about a raccoon or a stray cat. Cole took a deep breath. "It was Richard, our neighbor. He had a black bag and he pulled out a human hand, Mom." The clatter of his mother's coffee cup against the saucer was the only sound in the kitchen. Her amusement vanished, replaced by a look of bewildered concern. "Cole, honey, what are you talking about? A human hand? Are you sure you weren't dreaming?" "I wasn't dreaming," Cole insisted, his voice rising with frustration. "I went to get my football and he came home and he had this heavy bag and I saw him. He pulled it out." Sarah reached across the table, her hand gently resting on his forehead. "You don't have a fever. Maybe you were just really sleepy or it was dark. Richard is eccentric, but he's just an old man, Cole. He wouldn't do anything like that." "But I saw it," Cole's voice cracked. He felt tears welling in his eyes, not just from fear, but from the crushing weight of not being believed. "Honey, sometimes our imaginations can play tricks on us," Sarah said softly, trying to soothe him. "Especially when it's dark and you're sneaking around. You know you shouldn't be in people's yards at night, Cole." Her tone shifted slightly, reminding him of his transgression, which only made him feel more isolated. "So you think I'm lying?" he challenged, pulling away. "No, of course not, sweetie. I think you might have misunderstood what you saw, or maybe you were just really scared," she replied, her voice filled with a patience that only inflamed his anger. "Richard is harmless. He keeps to himself." Zane, who had been listening with wide, fascinated eyes, suddenly piped up. "Maybe it was a monster hand, Cole. Like a zombie." Sarah gave a weak laugh, trying to lighten the mood. See, honey, Zane has a vivid imagination too. Now let's finish breakfast. You're going to be late for school. Cole pushed his plate away, his appetite completely gone. How could she not believe him? The image of the hand was burned into his memory. He knew what he had seen. He knew. At school, Cole tried to confide in his best friend, Leo. During lunch, hunched over their trays of questionable cafeteria food, Cole recounted the whole terrifying story, leaving out no detail. Leo listened, his eyes growing wider and wider with each word. Whoa, Leo whispered, practically vibrating with excitement and fear. A human hand, like a real one. Yes, I swear, Cole exclaimed, and my mom thinks I'm making it up. Leo's initial excitement, however, quickly turned to skepticism. Are you sure it wasn't a really realistic prop? Like from a Halloween store? Richard seems like the kind of guy who'd have weird stuff like that. It wasn't a prop, Leo, it looked real, Cole insisted, frustrated again. It was pale and kind of. He trailed off, remembering the sickening detail of the wrist. Leo shrugged, his bravado fatting. Still, a serial killer in our neighborhood? That's like movie stuff. Maybe you just saw something weird and your brain made it into a hand because you were scared. Even his best friend didn't believe him. Cole felt a chilling sense of dread settle over him. If his mom and Leo wouldn't believe him, who would? What if Richard was truly dangerous and no one would listen until it was too late? The thought made his stomach churn. For the next few days, Cole became a shadow, watching Richard's house with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He peered through the blinds, trying to catch a glimpse of the old man during the day, but Richard remained a nocturnal creature, his house silent and dark. Cole jumped at every shadow, every unexpected noise. He started having nightmares, vivid and terrifying, where Richard's gaunt face loomed, holding up gruesome trophies. The threat and the plan. One afternoon, Cole was playing outside with Zane, trying to act normal. When Zane's toy car rolled under Richard's fence, Cole froze. Get it, Cole, Zane cheered, oblivious. Cole hesitated, a cold knot forming in his stomach. No, Zane, it's gone. Let's just go get another one. Just then, Richard's back door creaked open. The old man emerged, carrying a watering can, his movements slow and deliberate. His eyes, dark and sunken, scanned his yard, then landed on Cole. A slow, unsettling smile spread across his face, not one of warmth, but of something far more sinister. He walked over to the fence, picked up Zane's toy car and held it out. Looking for this, boy? His voice was raspy, like dry leaves scraping against pavement. Cole felt a shiver run down his spine. He took a step back, clutching Zane protectively. Yes, sir, he managed, his voice barely a whisper. Richard's smile widened, showing yellowed teeth. His gaze lingered on Cole's face, a predatory gleam in his eyes that made Cole's blood run cold. You know, he said, his voice dropping to a low, gravelly tone that sent a wave of nausea through Cole. Some things are better left unseen. Some secrets are best kept quiet. He paused, his eyes narrowing. Especially when a little bird might have seen something they shouldn't have. The implication hung in the air, heavy and chilling. It wasn't a question, it was a threat. Richard knew. He knew Cole had been in his yard. He knew Cole had seen the hand. Cole snatched the toy car, pulling Zane away. He didn't say a word, just dragged his brother back into their house, slamming the door shut. He pressed his back against it, panting, his mind racing. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't his imagination. Richard was a threat, and he knew Cole was onto him. Fear turned into a burning resolve. No one believed him, but Richard's words were undeniable proof. He had to do something. He had to expose him. He remembered his birthday gift from a few months ago, a small, high-definition action camera his uncle had given him for his bike stunts. It was waterproof, durable, and could record for hours. A plan began to form in Cole's mind, born out of desperation and a burgeoning sense of courage. If no one would believe his words, he would give them proof they couldn't ignore. He would capture Richard's monstrous secret on camera. That night, Cole waited until everyone was asleep again. He retrieved his camera, charging it fully and testing its night vision. He meticulously planned his route, identifying a vantage point from his bedroom window that offered a clear view of Richard's backyard and back door, but was obscured enough that the camera wouldn't be easily spotted. He also considered a potential, riskier spot closer to the fence, if necessary, but decided to start with the safer option. He taped the camera securely to the window frame, angled perfectly to record Richard's nightly activities. He set it to continuous record, hopping to catch the old man in the act. The suspense was almost unbearable. He lay in bed, feigning sleep, but his eyes were wide open, staring at the dark window, imagining the lens silently capturing whatever horrors unfolded next door. Days turned into a week. Cole religiously checked the footage every morning, his heart pounding with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Most of the time, the camera only showed Richard performing mundane tasks in the dark, watering plants, taking out trash, sometimes just sitting on his back porch in the shadows, smoking. Cole started to doubt himself again, the initial panic slowly fatting into a persistent, nagging anxiety. Had he overreacted? Was he just imagining things? The evidence. Then one Tuesday morning, as he fast-forwarded through the monotonous footage, something caught his eye, a flicker of movement. He rewound. There it was. Around 2 a.m., Richard had emerged from his back door, a new heavy black bag in tow. This time he didn't struggle as much as before, but the weight was evident in the way his shoulders slumped. He moved with a practiced, furtive efficiency. Cole watched, his breath caught in his throat, as Richard went to a small, overgrown patch near the back of his yard, a place Cole had always assumed was just a neglected flower bed. Richard knelt, and for a terrifying moment, the camera's angle was slightly obscured by a bush. But then, as Richard shifted, Cole saw it. The glint of a small shovel, the movement of fresh earth, and then the unmistakable, horrifying sight of Richard burying the black bag. He smoothed the soil over, meticulously covering his tracks, before retreating back into his house as silently as he had come. Cole's hands trembled as he watched the scene unfold. It wasn't just a hand this time. It was a bag, a buried bag, and the way Richard had handled it, the secrecy, the burial, it could only mean one thing. He quickly transferred the crucial segment of the video to his phone. He couldn't go to his mom again, not without more than just his word. This time, he had undeniable proof. The next morning, fortified by a courage he hadn't known he possessed, Cole walked straight to the local police station after school. His heart was hammering against his ribs, a mixture of terror and determination. The officer at the front desk, a kind-faced woman with a stern but approachable demeanor, looked surprised to see a 14-year-old boy walking in alone. "Can I help you, son?" she asked, a faint smile on her face. "Yes," Cole said, trying to keep his voice steady. I need to report a crime. My neighbor. I think he's a serial killer." The officer's smile faltered. "Whoa there, slow down. A serial killer? What makes you say that?" She sounded skeptical, but her eyes held a flicker of concern. "I have proof," Cole stated, pulling out his phone. "I saw him and I recorded him. He buried something in his yard." He showed her the video. The officer watched the grainy night vision footage of Richard, the black bag, the shovel, and the careful burial. Her expression slowly changed from skepticism to a grim seriousness. She zoomed in on the key moments, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Stay here, son," she said, her voice now crisp and professional. "I'm going to get a detective." Justice and reconciliation. Within minutes, Cole was recounting his story to Detective Miller, a gruff but attentive man who listened without interruption, his eyes fixed on Cole's face. He watched the video several times, asking Cole specific questions about the timeline and what he had witnessed that first night. "You said you saw a hand," Detective Miller asked, his voice low. "Yes, sir," Cole affirmed, his confidence growing now that he was finally being taken seriously. "He pulled it out of a similar bag that night." Detective Miller nodded slowly. "This is serious, Cole. We'll need to investigate this immediately. Do you mind staying here while we get things moving? We might need your statement again." Cole agreed. A wave of relief washing over him, so potent it almost made his knees buckle. Someone finally believed him. Later that afternoon, a flurry of activity erupted around Richard's house. Police cars, lights flashing, descended on the quiet street. Detectives, forensic teams, and uniformed officers swarmed the property. Cole watched from his window, a strange mix of vindication and fear churning in his stomach. His mom, who had rushed home from work in a panic after getting a call from the police, stared in disbelief at the unfolding scene. "Cole," she whispered, her face pale, "is this because of what you saw?" Cole simply nodded, unable to speak. The police quickly secured the scene. Within hours, forensic teams had located the freshly disturbed earth in Richard's backyard. The digging was slow and methodical. Eventually, a chilling discovery was made. Not just one bag, but several. And what they contained confirmed Cole's worst fears: human remains. Richard was apprehended attempting to flee his house through a side window. He offered no resistance, his face a mask of weary resignation, his dark eyes meeting Cole's across the street for a fleeting, chilling moment before he was led away in handcuffs. The news spread like wildfire through the neighborhood and beyond. Richard, the reclusive old man, was indeed a serial killer, responsible for the disappearances of several people over the years, their cases long unsolved. Cole's quick thinking, his courage, and his action camera had brought a terrifying reign of terror to an end. Sarah hugged Cole tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I am so sorry, honey," she sobbed. "I should have listened to you, I should have believed you." Cole hugged her back, finally allowing himself to feel the full weight of the past week's terror and the overwhelming relief of its end. "It's okay, Mom," he whispered, though he knew it wasn't entirely. The images he'd seen, the fear he'd felt, would stay with him, but so would the knowledge that he had faced it and he had done the right thing. The quiet, peaceful life he and Zane and his mother had known was shattered, replaced by the grim reality of what had lurked next door. But it was also a life made safer, thanks to Cole. He was no longer just a 14-year-old boy who loved football. He was the boy who had unmasked a monster. And though the nightmares might linger, he also knew that he was brave, resourceful, and capable of more than anyone, even himself, had ever imagined.